especially when I'm on a time. Oh, okay. Especially when it's been like a time crunch for me, or if I just can't get those creative juices flowing, I feel like it is a good kind of leap pad, right? It kind of gets me started, and then you kind of tweak and adjust and adapt to either meet the needs of your classroom or your learners. So, Q Canva. Canva is one of my favorite tools in general. There's so many things you can do, and the best part of it is in fact free for educators. I feel like a lot of tools would be like, oh, it's free asterisk, right? Like you can get this little mini version, but if you want all the things, for a low price of blah, blah, blah. Well, Canva is completely free. You use it with your educator. You sign up with your educator email and you'll have access to all the tools in Canva in case you aren't aware, just so you know. So when you first dive into Canva, on the landing page, you'll actually see where you can create. And this little screenshot that I did there is the Canva AI. So when you click Canva AI, it then is going to give you a prompt box exactly like this. And then you kind of have these different tools that are at your fingertips. So, for example, design for me, create an image, draft a doc, coding. I'm going to be honest with y'all, I haven't played around with the coding at all. Coding is not in my realm or scope of work. So I don't have too much to say about that one. And then you can even create some cool little video clips or things like that. So if you go to the next, I'll kind of talk through the tools that I've just kind of played around with myself. So the first one was a design for me. So in and exactly what Rocco was talking about, the prompt is super important, right? Because the more specific you are, the better it will create whatever you're looking for, right? And then once you've created it, then you can kind of fine tune it and adjust it and adapt it. So in here, I did design, when you do design for me, then it gives you a couple of options. And I did a presentation because as a teacher, I think we use a lot of presentations, right? Whenever we go through our lessons, when we're giving our direct explicit instruction. And so I gave it the prompt, and mine was actually more explicit than this one, but it kind of narrowed it down for me. And so I just asked for an engaging presentation for fifth graders on properties of matter. And then it generated a whole bunch of different options, different themes, different content within those presentations. And then essentially I clicked through each one. And I think if, Rocco, are you the one controlling the presentation? If you go back, just go back to the previous. I need a clicker. Ah, you can go to the next one. It doesn't want to. Or is it me? And the problem is me. Okay, if you click the larger exploring the physical properties, I think I hyperlinked that picture. Yeah, and so this is what, when I gave it the prompt, this is what AI generated for me. So if you click through the slides, it kind of gives an overview. It generates the different images. It puts the content on there. And so then I actually, when I was giving it the prompt, I said include, because I know all the properties, right? Include density, solubility, et cetera, et cetera. But this is something that it just kind of generated on its own if you're kind of giving an introduction, which is really nice. It even threw in a little quote for us. So that's one of the tools. And when you put the prompt in, it generates it in, I mean, it took less than a minute for sure. So it's a really good on the go tool. And then of course I would go in there as a teacher and then think about what, key vocabulary terms and things and just make sure that those are embedded in that presentation. So that's the first tool in Canva. And if I'm talking too fast, let me know. This next one is probably my favorite one. So it's draft a doc. So when you go into the tools back to like that home screen, the Canva AI, this you could do so many things with it. In this particular prompt, I asked it to give me 5 interactive stations on properties of matter. And this is what it generated. So I think, did I hyperlink? I hyperlinked something. There we go. I'm so I learned there's type A people, type B people, and type C. I'm type C. So if you haven't heard what it is, it's kind of like a mix of both. And so I'm organized, but then like it's kind of can see if you know your standards, we just went through revisions. And if you notice, these are the old coding. So this is actually supposed to be 5.6A, 5.6B, 5.6C. But those are, again, things as a teacher, I think it's really important when you use AI to kind of just cross reference, right? Know your standards, make sure that it includes all those important things. But if you scroll down, again, this is really cool. If I was a big, when I was in the classroom, I was a big stations teacher. I loved kids working collaboratively in groups. And so it generated all of these hands-on activities that you could prep as a teacher. And again, I just gave it that prompt, and in seconds, it generated these 5 interactive stations where students could explore properties of matter. But if you need a more explicit, detailed lesson plan, this is a good place for it. If you need to generate like kind of like a formative project-based assessment, I think this is a good tool. So there's so many applications for this Canva AI created doc. And thank you very much. And then the last one I wanted to share with y'all is just all of the editing tools within Canva itself. And these really apply to, yeah, you can click that. Let's see where it takes us. It's like, it's so fun, right? So if you click the little sun, or Jupiter, I think that's probably Jupiter. If you click on the image, oh, you're not able to edit. Only I am. Well, anyway, when you click any image in Canva, I know, sorry, y'all. I gave you the heads up, I'm type C. But any image, if you want to go back to the presentation, Rocco, any image that you click in Canva, it gives you these options. So you can remove a background. I'm sorry, my dogs are barking because it's raining over here. You can magically erase certain things. And this truly, I feel like, is one of those things you just got to play around with. You can grab objects in an image. You can grab specific text. I like that one a lot. What I did with that one was I created, like in Canva, I just pulled up like a food web. And then I took away the labels on the food web with the grab text, and then have kids actually go in and identify, is this a producer, is this a consumer, right? And that kind of thing. Or they could add in the arrows. Like if you wanted to make it an engaging activity for your students. And then the magic media is where you can create any type of, I didn't hyperlink that one because I was planning on playing around there. But on that one, you can give it 5 or more words. And of course, the more explicit, the better. And it generates these AI images, which you can pick all different types of themes. You can do it more like comic type. You could do more realistic photograph, and things like that. So those are the main tools. I mean, really, truly, I feel like it's one of those things where you just have to play around with the tools, but they're super awesome and hopefully things that you can use in your classroom. Information overload, right?
Yeah. Well, that was actually an amazing amount of information. So we wanted to just kind of give some time. Um, has anyone used so Stephanie gave great use cases for Canva and the AI being built into, I think a lot of teachers were already kind of using Canva, at least from what I was seeing. I think maybe COVID put like a, some juice behind teachers learning how to make slides and things like that. Um, and I think Canva kind of was pretty popular during that time. Now with the AI capabilities, it's like you can create even faster, even better. But absolutely true. Prompts are super important. How much you prompt really determines like the output that you get. And then of course also checking. I think that's also really important. You know, checking and making sure that it's all factual information. AI hallucinating is absolutely a thing that happens. So you always check your work. So with that, I'll just like open up the floor if anyone wants to come off of mute, or if anyone wants to put in the chat. Has anyone used Canva AI in another way that Stephanie hadn't mentioned that they would like to kind of share with the group? Or if you have any questions that you, Stephanie, might be able to answer. How do you tell it not to include a bunch of text? Jennifer, what do you mean by that? Like when you, after you prompt, or?
Yeah, so for when we were doing images, it kept wanting to like put a bunch of text. We were trying to do one that showed um weathering, erosion, and deposition, like with the particles actually being shown what's happening to like pieces of rock. And it just kept layering text behind it. I think we were using Canva, but maybe we were using Magic School because we have both. Um, and it like I didn't know if there was a secret for how you tell it what not to include when you're doing a prompt.
So I have when I use that magic media, I've had images where I actually haven't gotten very often. The only time I've gotten an image with text was when I asked for like a diagram. Like at one time I asked for like a water cycle diagram, and it puts weird text in there, right? It was like gibberish. It wasn't even words. And so you can even ask it for a diagram without text and it'll do that. But I could try to play around with it right now and see. But to my experience, I've only gotten text on my image when I ask for a diagram in itself. Otherwise, it just gives me pictures.
Yeah, that's the problem is we're trying to do diagrams that would be very similar to what kids might see on STAR, like black and white or simplistic diagrams for district assessment questions, or just for like emergent bilinguals. Like we want them as simplistic as possible. And it did the same thing. It threw up a bunch of text that was just like Latin or complete just gibberish, like you said. So I didn't know because like when you're searching on Google, if you put like the minus sign right in front of TPT, for example, it will totally not include anything from Teachers Pay Teachers, right? You can exclude just like you can include. And I didn't know if there was a secret string to say, or do you just say no text, create a diagram without text? I mean, is it that smart that I can just act like I'm talking to it?
I would say yes. I've seen one of the founders of GPT came out with a framework. It's a little bit lengthier, but like his fourth step in his prompt was make sure to explicitly name like what to watch out for or what not to do. So he was like, anytime you are asking ChatGPT for something, to be very explicit about what you don't want. And he said that will yield better outputs. So yeah, I would say definitely try that. Cool. Okay. So that's our first tool. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna go kind of quickly. I'm gonna talk about vibe coding and specifically through Gemini. I'm gonna talk about Gemini as well. So Gemini, Google Gemini is so we're kind of living in a fun age where this is like an emerging technology, and all the big players all want to have the best large language models. So OpenAI kind of has the lead coming out the gate, but of course Google has a ton of money that they've been working on this for a while as well. So they have their product, which is called Gemini. Gemini has functionality very similar to ChatGPT. I also shared like if you are a college student and you have a college email address, if you're going to school right now, Google is giving away a free year of the $20 a month access to their product, which is like what similar to what ChatGPT would cost their pro version. So if you know of a college student or if you're in college yourself, you can get this for free. And it's like I said, it has a lot of the same functionality as a chat bot. It's a large language model. But there's a few extra things because it's Google that it can do that are pretty fun. So one thing is it is baked into the whole Google suite. So it's baked into Google Docs and Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets. So I did this as an example, and I just took screenshots because I didn't know how great my internet would be. But I just created. You see, this is just a Google sheet, and I put some vocabulary words in there. And then I told Gemini, okay, put the definition in column B. And then it did it. And I was reading them and I said, that's a little too high end. I want you to make it for a fifth grade student to understand. And so then it just modified it and made them better. And then once I said, yeah, I can live with those. Those seem pretty good. So now I need them in Spanish and put those in column C. And then it just dropped the Spanish version of the definition right there in the column next to it. So I did all of that without leaving Google Sheets. So there's lots of things you can do, like I said, and this is through Gemini, that you can do just, like I said, it's just baked into Google. They also have another standalone tool called Notebook LM, which is pretty amazing. And so what this is the way it's different is you, instead of like it's searching the trillions of pieces of data that it's been put into it, you actually get to pick and choose which data you want it to come through. So here I just went to Google Scholar and I searched, best methods for teaching elementary science, and I pulled like 4 or 5 articles that I thought sounded interesting, and I dropped those research-based backed, like this is peer-reviewed research, and I dropped it into Notebook LM. And here you can see this is just a screenshot, but it started to give me a synthesis of those 5 articles. And not only that, the kind of cooler thing is that you can have it create podcast. So you click audio overview, and it takes a little bit of time, but then so you can see if I like don't want to read these 4 20-page research articles, I can just read the synthesis. Or if I'm driving home I can just hit play and it's a 25-minute and it sounds like a very real male and female voice, and they're just discussing these articles and synthesizing all that they have to say and their connections and the patterns that they find. So it's actually super, super interesting. So that's part of once again, that's called Notebook LM. Super helpful if you currently are doing research or if you're interested in something and you've got a lot of like research that's really dense and heavy and you just kind of want a quick like, hey, what is all this research saying? You can throw it through this tool and it'll give you a really great synthesis of all of that information. So that's with Notebook LM. So that's I talked about vibe coding, but that's not what this is. But these are just some tools that Google Gemini have. But with vibe, so what is vibe coding? Vibe coding is when you don't know how to code, which is me, but you want to like just create things. When I was younger, I like to be creative and I like to express myself creatively, but I am probably the worst artist in the history of artists. My freehand drawings are terrible. But I learned really early on that I could, be creative, not with my like freehand drawing pictures, but I could just Google a picture of a chicken rather than draw a chicken. And so I've really, since probably high school, I have leaned into if I have to create anything, I prefer to do it digitally almost 100% of the time. So if you're like a creative person who just likes to more of like a blank canvas and you just like have an idea for something that you'd like to just create, you can do that now, and it'll create the code for you. And then you just have to find a way to put it online. So some of the things that I've created. So this is a interactive arcade game where there's a vocabulary definition, and then you move the chicken around the screen, and when you hit spacebar, an egg comes out of his butt, and you try to just like shoot down the correct vocabulary word. Another one I created, this is a tower defense game. I just went through and thought of all the games that kids are playing. So you can see the words kind of move across the screen, and I have to drag the definition into these little towers. And then once the word and the definition match, then the tower will shoot at that word. And the goal is to get all the words gone before they all kind of snake across the screen there. So and then this is a platform jumper, very similar. There's a vocabulary word at the top, and you move around with the arrows on your keyboard, and you can jump, and you try to like jump into the correct definition. So once again, just super simple arcade-ish style games that you can play. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, there were also some like virtual labs that we used to use, or just even labs that we used to do in class that I just couldn't digitize. So, but now you can. So this is a virtual lab that I created, and I actually have it. Pull it into here. So when we do mixtures and solutions, I always wanted the kids to analyze the properties of the ingredients first to figure out which property to use to separate it. So when you click on the two ingredients, you can see the physical properties, and so it's the property that's different. That's how we know how to separate it. So we would be training the kids to connect mixtures and solutions to physical properties. So because it's magnetic, that means the property we're going to use is magnetism, and that means the tool we're going to use is the magnet. And then you can click next, and it'll give you a new randomized mixture. So like I said, I first got excited just creating arcade games. And then I started getting into, well, what about like a virtual lab? And I was able to do this over the weekend, I would say. So not a whole lot of time that it takes to do this kind of stuff. So the big thing, and I'll just kind of demonstrate. So I'm going to pull up. I've been using Gemini, and then I did need a prompt, so I started one earlier. Some of you might remember there was a while ago, there was like this game online when we were studying food webs and food chains. I don't know if you remember it, but it wasn't HTML. It was Flash. And when the whole internet changed to Flash, we couldn't play it anymore. But there was like a fox and a bunny and grass, and you could manipulate like how many fox to start with and how many bunnies. And then it was a simulator, and you'd hit play, and then you would see the population of each organism kind of go up and down. And the goal was to create like a balanced ecosystem. And my kids, they got way into it. So we would play it every year, talking about food chains and food webs and changes to ecosystems and all that good stuff. But we don't have it anymore because it was Flash, and no one has created it in the new HTML version. So so what I did is I just kind of tried to describe it as best I could. So here you can see I want to simulator. It is a rather, I already kind of started this. It is rather lengthy of me describing it. I click on Canvas, and when I hit start, it's gonna think for a little bit, and then what it'll do is it'll show its thinking, which means you'll actually see the kind of code getting written. There you go. So when I create the arcade games, this is what I do. I just describe it in as great of detail as I can, and it starts populating the results. I will say I've learned a lot doing this. It's never going to be right the first time. It does feel like you're working with someone. I know they are not a someone; it's a something, but you'll get something. So you see, here is my preview. So I've got grass, bunnies, and wolves. I can play the simulation. And that's actually not too bad. I wonder how long it'll go for. I'll have to pause it. So then I pause it. It seems like we're pretty stable. But then I wanted it to, so I'm going to reset my ecosystem and say, I told it to include some ecological changes. So let's say they build a highway. So now I want to apply and see what happens. Play simulation. So you can see it happens differently. So then we can pick a different impact, water scarcity, and then see what happens. Oh, we lost our bunnies. I don't know how we went from 0 to any. Some magical bunnies in this simulator. But there are some things. So once again, I would play with it for a little bit, and then I would say, hey, I like this, I don't like that, and it'll update the code and then spit out the newest version. So like I said, if you're more of like a blank slate, I love to create, and I just want to like brain dump into a thing and then see a final product. It is really just that quick and that simple. Like I said, you definitely have to tinker and you got to do stuff like that. But like I said, if you have an idea of just a thing you've done in class and you want to make it web based, like we can do that now. It's really kind of a cool time to be doing that. The last step it is so you do have to figure out a way. So this is the code. You just copy it. You just have to figure out how to get it online. So you do so you have to have some type of server. There's different websites you can go to, free accounts where you just copy the code and then it'll generate a URL. We're not going to get into that, but what you could also do is just download this as an HTML file if you didn't want to worry about putting it online. If you just email the file to your students, they can open it and it'll just open up in the browser, but it's like it's running it locally. It's not running it through the internet. So that's the only limitation and difference. But once again, it's your imagination is your only limitation. However you want it to look and be, you can create now. So that's pretty cool. So that's all I have about vibe coding and creating things, digital assets for online learning. I'll stop talking now and I'll kind of same thing, open up the floor. Has anyone messed around with vibe coding or creating digital assets and from scratch and using large language models to code for you?
I'll jump in and say that when you have that script up there, the coding portion of it, I was like, abort, abort, because I didn't, I would see that and go, that's not what I wanted. But I love that it waited a little bit, and I like the visual of them bounce back and forth.
Or the preview? Yeah. Okay, so that is vibe coding. Like I said, I use Gemini. Claude is another really good tool. Claude does coding well. Believe it or not, ChatGPT is, I think, the worst at coding currently. So if this is something you want to try, I would recommend using either Gemini or Claude because it's just less. I've tried it with all three, and I get the best results from Gemini and Claude. So last piece of advice there. Okay, and now we'll move on to Magic School and Teacher Server.
Excellent. Rocco, can I steal the screen from you?
Yes, you may.
Because I'm going to kind of go into, I'm going to go into what they look like. Okay, this one, share. Okay, can y'all see it now? We're good. Okay, beautiful. All right, so I will completely admit that I am not an expert at this, just messing around, playing around with it. Magic School AI was probably one of the first ones besides Chat GPT that I jumped into. Magic School, and I actually have the link for those that need it on there. Like Stephanie said, is one that says it's free, and it is free, but you got to pay for a lot of the upgrades on some things. So this is kind of your little dashboard, kind of show you kind of what it looks like. I've kind of tagged some of my favorite ones at the top. I use image generator when I'm trying to create a picture for an assessment, things like that. I do struggle with what I've noticed in here, a lot of them that any sort of line drawing that would look like the star, I'm not having great results at it. But I did have some good things with it, but just putting your specific in there, what you want along with it. But exploring some of the other ones, so like the common misconceptions, what I kind of did with some of them is I went in and legitimately put in the standard and pasted in the standard. And I also, on some of them, when I started going to do it a little bit too, I went to the TEKS guide and included some of those specifics. So I took when they had the what it is it not the explanations, what's the one that they've got, the detailed explanation, and included that in my prompt along with it. So this one I just straight up put the expectation in, and it gave me some misconceptions, and it also gave me ways to address it. So I had some of these. Let's see, is it going to take too long to generate them? Here they are. So it was kind of going through and giving me a few, and then it gave me ways to address it. So some of it were hands-on, different things. What I've noticed with a lot of them, when you start to put it in there, if you're not too specific with it, then it's going to give you other things. Like when I start talking about weather tools, it started throwing in barometer and air pressure. And I just go in there and back into the little message at the bottom, say, hey, remove this, or can you give me another idea that's hands-on? Just kind of keep working with the prompt as you're going along with it. But the common misconceptions was a good one that I enjoyed. I also enjoyed the depth of knowledge questions. Same thing. I just pasted in the standard, and it gave me different ones, different levels of blooms and depths of knowledge on there, the DOK levels, that are ways to kind of ask the kids. Can have them critically write about these. I can have them do some sort of prompt along with it, can have a discussion with it. But it also is a way to assess kids with it. So if I'm looking at it, can they formulate? Where are they? When we look at approaches, meets, and masters, our master's kids are going to be more towards that application and the analyzing phase. We're going to be looking for those. So a difference of taking kids. And one thing I'm talking with my teachers later on this summer when they come back is about how do we take those meets to masters? How do we focus on those kids? Well, we need to be going further in their extending their thinking out along with it. So I liked the depth of knowledge tools. Then there was the academic content. So the academic content, this one was asked a little bit more information for me. And once again, if you're not quite sure what to do with things, we're going to do teacher server in a minute. I just clicked on it, said, hey, generate something. Tell me what you think goes in that. And then I adjusted it to match. So for this one, I went in and I asked it to give me a something on it. So here I asked for an informational text, pardon me, as I can't spell on things. And I wanted it to be 3 paragraphs. And then I included my standard in there as well. And then anything else that I wanted to give it in there, any specifics, if I wanted to include certain vocabulary words or not include certain vocabulary words, if I wanted to include metaphors or anything, but going through, and it gave me a short passage about that. So then I can be having kids reading, because I feel like we're constantly looking for informational text on science, informational text on social studies, and this one goes through and gives it to me. There's a couple of different ones. This one will read it aloud to you. You can copy and paste it. You can possibly, I haven't done it on this one, but then go ask questions based off of that, create questions on it. I'm curious. I'm going to have a couple of my teachers this year create some of these, and then create science questions and RLA questions that go along with them, especially if they're including any form of point of view or the author's purpose or any sort of, this one doesn't have a picture in it, but if we put a picture in there, why did they use that picture? What's the purpose of that? So having those cross-curricular options for them. Another one that I liked was the text leveler. So you can either take the text you just did, or you can go back and say, hey, write it for this. But this one I actually went through, and I think I still have it on my desktop. I uploaded our curriculum resource actually has some PDFs of some readings. So I just took the reading along with it. And then I went through and I had it basically level it for me. So when I come in, this was at a 5th grade level, I can come in and say, hey, write it at a 1st grade level for me. And it will go through whether you paste the text in there or you take a PDF and throw it in there. It's going to level it for you. It's going to take some of those out. Now, I'd be curious and watch it if it's going to take out the key vocabulary, because we don't necessarily need to lose the key vocabulary. So this one was a story from our resource, and it was about 2 students having a conversation about the red balloon and how it has air inside of it and it takes up space and everything. So I would want to make sure that it didn't lose the key words that were along that I needed. If it talks about volume, if it talks about air, if it talks about particles, but it does take some of it and bring it down to a different level. It takes out different that sounds, I can't even remember what the original one said, but it takes some of the higher level words and brings it down for him. So the text leveler was a good choice. And then the text dependent questions. Am I doing on time? Doing good too. So the text dependent questions, I kind of did the same thing with the same passage. I went through and I left it at the grade level I wanted, and I wanted 5 questions this time. And I included different things. What did I put in here? I think I left all of those. I did comprehension. Of course, I screenshot instead of evidence supported, inferring, and points of view, because I am not an RLA person, not at all. And so I struggle with those. So I just went over to my RLA buddy and said, hey, what kind of questions do they need to know? Thankfully, I worked with my 4th grader this last year and knew some of the things that they would need on there. So I took that same text that I had, if I didn't level it down, or if I did level it down, and go through, and it will give us some questions based off of it. I feel confident in my writing some science, and actually in this, our resource, it had questions that went along with it, but it did not have questions about the RLA aspect of it. So here it's telling me I have a comprehension, text evidence, inferring, point of view, and another text evidence, and there are my questions for me. And I believe there's my answer key as well. So tells me what they are, where I can connect them to, and then it gives me those. So I feel a little bit more confident with those in my little RLA abilities. Is there anything in Magic School that y'all are loving? There's a bunch of different things in here. It does make me nervous when you click on just create me a lab or create me a lesson plan, because it's not so specific to the science standards. So sometimes it's going to give you a little bit one that may not be fully aligned on this.
Melissa, can I ask, I know this is like freemium type of like AI tool. Are all the things, do you have an account, or is this stuff that like you can have with a free account?
That's all free stuff. That's all
Okay.
free stuff. Yep. I don't pay for it. So I want to say it's like $9 a month, or like I don't even know, maybe $100 a year, but I don't love it enough right now to pay for it myself on things. But all of those were free. And
Okay,
all
that's
I
great.
did
Yeah.
on there was,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ones. I can go through and I can just click the little star and it saves it to the top of mine.
Okay. How do you, I mean, I'm sorry, how do you know which ones are not? Like, is it you only get so many, or there's just specific things that you
You
don't
know
have
what?
access
I
to?
haven't around it. I haven't seen any. I never ran into any that were not free. Maybe they pop up if you have the upgrade, because I've got the upgrade down here. I don't know what the difference is. Magic School did better with making some science illustration. Oh, good. Magic School.
So maybe you
Good.
only get like a certain amount of like generations per,
Maybe so.
maybe you
Yeah.
have access to all the tools, but you just can't use it unlimitedly, is
Yep.
what I'm thinking.
Yep. I don't use it enough to ever hit a spot for that. Yeah, Jen, I used it for a couple of my assessments. I needed a ball that was, billiard ball that was going this way and bouncing into here, and I had to kind of guide it very specifically. But I did get some good ones. And on the image generator, you can go through and you can attach some, like when you're doing it, I can do text to image, or you can upload an image and kind of say, hey, this is the kind of vibe that I want along with it.
Yeah,
Create questions.
I don't know that Canva has been taught what erosion, weathering, or deposition are, because I got a weird thing that looked like fingers were coming out of the ground with sprinkles or sparkles coming out of the tips of the
Oh.
fingers. Yeah, it did not do a good job at all. We actually had better luck like trying to find an image to start with. And then, if you edit enough of it and you're only using it for education, you do have some
Yep.
limited rights with it.
Yep.
So that's how we eventually did it. Because there used to be a huge database of earth science images, and I can't find it anymore. So I guess it probably was a grant.
Maybe
that
so.
went off. Yeah.
Yeah. Amber, I like that idea. Amber uses it to create questions watching YouTube videos. I know that I've seen one, I don't know if it was this one or if it was another one that I saw last week that you can just, oh, here's YouTube video questions. This one may do it where you can just put the YouTube video in there and, oh, this one tells you the transcript. I like it. Put in there. Some of them it'll find the questions already for you. Our district blocks YouTube, so I don't really mess with that one a whole lot, but good. A little bit of time on that. So, Magic School was one that's starting to move towards a little bit more of the paid one. Rocco told me about Teacher Server AI, and let me give you that link. So I started exploring this one a little bit more. Teacher Server AI, I think Rocco, you said it was out of Florida. Is that right?
Yeah, University of South Florida.
Excellent. So on this one, Teacher Server, this one is free. And you go through and you can actually see. So this is kind of my homepage with science on there. We've got two different spots to it. So you've got general science that I kind of dug into. Then it breaks it down into a bunch of different sciences, upper level sciences. At the very bottom of it, I'm scrolling quickly, there is science for ESOL and ESL students, which is our emergent bilingual students. And some of it you can take a little further for GT kids. And then you've got what I ended up doing is I'm going to go to, if I can find it real quick, I'm going to go to my dashboard because I think up at the top is my name. Oh, I'm not logged in. That's going to be a problem. Okay, log in with my Google. All my Googles. Look at different things. Now you have them.
I will say real quick, I like this because also it's a .com. So my district has really been funky about like it doesn't allow anything. Like they've blocked all AI and unless like they let us have Copilot, which is that good. But this it's nice because this is free and it's a .com, which it's been getting by my filter. So if your district is a little bit more stringent on allowing AI tools, at least in my district, this has gotten through. So that's another kind of added bonus to this one as well.
Awesome. So I really only explored the science tab on these, and these are some of the ones that I saved. This is my dashboard. I created little categories where I could have the different ones that I use for quick access. But here kind of a little bit, because we were looking at differentiation for different learners. The learning style adaptation tool, what I did with this one, let me find out my little thing where I did it. There it is. So I went a little bit further on this one, and I included on here. So this one was one of the things where I'm like, what do you want in that? So I just clicked the autofill to see what kind of things they would include. And then I kind of adjusted it. So I was just clicking buttons. So to kind of make it work. So what I ended up doing for fifth grade is I included what the expectation was. So I went with light because light screws us up a lot. I mean, something simple, but not at the same time. It definitely highly tested nowadays. And so, but then I also included the other information that was the detailed explanations from Teek's Guide. And then on my included part, I switched it up to ESL, but it took it as the same. And I put GT kids and students with various needs include hands-on learning, all the different things. And I generated responses. So with this one, what it actually kind of did is it gave me different things to kind of do with different learning styles. I know that we could talk about different things, but it gives you different ways to approach things pretty much in general. So what you're going to find with Teacher Server, it's not going to look as cute and friendly and elementary as Magic School is. It was a little bit more, and I didn't really find a thing like a print and go kind of thing. So it's going to be a little bit not as beautiful and stuff, but it gives you a bunch of different things. So even if it's going through and coming up with ideas on what to do from different angles for kids. And then you've got some different adaptations for them to do to adjust it for kids. So that one was the learning style adaptation tool. Then we also had the vocabulary builder, which the vocabulary builder, Rocco showed you that one that gave you the definitions, right? That's the one you had on there. So with the vocabulary builder, you gonna work for me? You're gonna click, maybe so. Okay, so I did in here, did fifth grade again, put the same information, copied and pasted it a bunch of different times. And then I wanted them to include, let's see, I included visual representations, pronunciation guides, and simple experiments to reinforce understanding, provide translational for the words in Spanish, German, and Turkish. Why did I choose those? Because when I clicked autofill, that's what they had. So that's where I got that from. Obviously, I would have needed in Turkish if I didn't need it in Turkish. So I'm looking at the different things as it's thinking. Load, load, load. Of course, these are the ones that I did not take screenshots of. There it goes. So some of these words came from the explanation, from the detailed explanation. It talked about translucent, transparent, and opaque. I could go in and take some off if I needed to. I can remove them, I can add them, but it's going to give you their simple definitions. There's visual representations for kids. I'd love to have them come up with their own, but here's a chance that you could go through it with the kids if they need it. It's going to give you examples of those in sentences. So we need light to see objects around us. Light from the sun helps plants grow. So using them in different ways. Then you've got the parts of it. So we're breaking them down, looking at the different roots of the words, pronunciation guides, and then here's your translations. And then it goes into conceptual concepts, memory aids, different ways to go through it. I know that with kids, getting them to repeat and also giving them something to connect it to, giving them some sort of core memory to connect that word to, those memory aids might help with those as well too. But it's got a lot of different things for you. So that was which tool was that? That was the vocabulary builder. And then the differentiated assessment, got that one for you. So stuck to the same one on this one with the light. I was really stuck on some questions after having a conversation with some teachers. It worked for us. Maybe so. Need a quick click in it. There it goes. So once again, switching up to 5th grade, putting that same content in here. And I included in my bottom options for ESL students and those with learning disabilities. Ensure assessments cover all the key learning objectives. Where did I come up with that instruction? I clicked the auto fill to go with that one. There it goes. So learning objectives is the one that your district is using, what you're using in your classroom. You've got some set for you. Then you've got some visual learner assessments. So some different ways to assess students. So you've got visual, you've got auditory, kinesthetic, reading and writing learners, reading and writing, and then digital and multimedia assessments. And then you've got some tiered ways to do it. So, and then some options for some ESL students, learning disabilities, and self-assessment concept, and a rubric as well. So just giving you some other options, not just the basics for them. Those are all the ones that I quickly looked at for differentiation. Oh, nope, still log in. I am pretty impressed with Teacher Server. There was a lot that I liked. So, okay, when we get into the science pieces, these are some of the ones I will say that I felt that Teacher Server was a little bit more science-based. And so it was a little bit more specific on science things. And I felt like it would catch a little bit more of that. So when I looked at this one for science classification, this one I had to be specific on it. I couldn't just put any standard. I focused on energy changes. So I wanted to go through and I wanted to look at energy changes because students are having to go through and they're having to look at multi-step transformations. And I put in there that I want them to classify each type of energy as chemical, mechanical, electrical, light, thermal, or sound, because if they can't do that, if they can't identify those, then they're going to struggle along with those energy transformations. So this one went through. And it's kind of like when you're looking at, is it a solid, liquid, or gas? It's going to create a bunch of different examples for you already. So here it's going through a rolling ball. What kind is it? So it's going to go through, it gives them, here are the examples that they put on there. Then they've got the description form, whether they're going to have it or not. And they're going to go through and they're going to basically tell us what it is. Then they've got some short answer questions to go along with it where they're applying it. and then it's going to have your answer key for you as well. So I'd have to kind of make a little table maybe. Now, does this really go with the standard where they're going from what does it begin with and what is it changing to the output? No, but this could scaffold along that. I could sit there and say, hey, let's take it up a next level to some of them, but some students, it maybe pull them over, small group, let's talk about this, the car engine running. What is it going to be? What does it start with? What is it in with? All those, and just identifying it. So that was the classification. I think one of their examples was the different, it was a sixth grade one about classifying things. They were kind of having to sort through it. The misconception one did the same thing as the previous one did, where it gives you the misconception, an explanation to it, and then you can also include some different ways to address those misconceptions. And the formative assessment probes I liked as well too. Where's that one? Ooh, do we want light or do we want oh, they were both light. Okay, so here's what I did on this one. Switch it to fifth grade because it's what I was stuck on this week looking at things. Yes, and then I wanted them to make sure to include open-ended options that challenge common misconceptions. So we were talking about light as well, gave them that detailed explanation. This is the last one we're looking at. No. So here's our probe. So our probe is Maria's doing an experiment with flashlight, different materials, and a white screen. She shines a flashlight on each material on the screen. Here are her observations. So then it starts to go into what happens to the light when it passes through the plain glass, what happens to it when it goes through the frosted glass pane, sorry, and then there's the open-ended piece to it. So could I take away the multiple choice pieces? Yes, and make it more challenging for some students, but gives the option to some of them. And then it goes through with what was the answer and what was the reasoning why, and what was the misconception if they picked the different letters that were, the different options that were wrong. So just kind of getting kids thinking, going along with it, but starting to have a prompt with some questions, because we are going to see those new item types of the cluster set with different questions along with it. So kind of getting them to think about the same thing. So that was the last one I had on there. So if I can go back to our presentation, if I can find my screen on it. Has anyone else tried or been playing around with the teacher server?
Yeah, I've been when I found it and I shared it, I started kind of poking around. There's one called under the like ESL section. It was the cultural contextualization tool. So I
Yes.
pasted and I was working on like writing curriculum for next year on mixtures and solutions. So I pasted it in there, and it just like gives you examples of like, so it said have your kids look at like making like dyes in India, or how they made medicines in China, or in Mexico how they make paints and things like that. So like it like just brought in like other cultural contexts of the teak that you put in there. So that was actually, so I was trying to think of like you said, differentiation, like a challenge activity that our kids that performed well in the assessment could like deepen their ideas on it. And yeah, it's cool for them to like research how they mixtures are incorporated in other parts of the world. So I really liked that tool.
Absolutely. So we have notes from today. I actually have this link for y'all, and I had it to copy and paste. No, I don't want that one.
So I made that a force a copy.
And yes, you did. Beautiful. And I was going to put it in the chat for him.
Okay.
Beautiful. There it is.
So those are just notes from today. Stephanie, or Melissa, if you want to just open that up, we can look at that real quick. So I did put people asked about links to the slides. So the link to the today's slides are here. Stephanie actually was playing around in Canva with the code generator, and she created an ecosystem game, vibe coding, and it just was that quick, and it's a real cute game with the fish and everything. So I threw that link in there as well. I also gave the links. So those arcade games that I had created in that Mixtures and Solutions lab, I put those in there so you guys can have those. And then also, like I said, if you wanted to get those on the internet, those are some websites you can go to. we talked about prompt frameworks. I did find a prompt framework for creating an arcade game, and I've used this to create some. And like I said, it's just a starting point. It helps you really, like I said, the more detailed your prompt can be, the better. So finding a framework that works really helps. And then also, so you scroll down, I did put the links to all the things. And then in your registration, we asked you like, what AI tools are you currently using? And we did talk about a lot of them here today, but two that like we didn't have time to talk about that people mentioned were Brisk AI and Snorkel. I'd heard of Brisk. I believe that's more for like making assessments. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But Snorkel was one I had never heard of, and like I think two or three of you mentioned Snorkel, talking about instant feedback on student thinking. I guess I kind of had just a second to look at it. It looks like the kids kind of draw pictures as their answers, and then the AI can kind of assess how they're doing. If anyone has been using Snorkel and can speak to that, or just put it in the chat, that'd be great. I've never experienced it, so I just linked them in the guide as well. So if you'd like to play around with some of those, teachers seem to be using those now too. Has anyone here used Snorkel? No?
Oh, but I just opened them.
Okay.
We're just
Um,
having problems getting our district to approve student use for some of them because of the data and they collect. Like obviously, we aren't allowed to even begin to have it work on an IEP or anything like that. And so I wonder, like, I love the idea of kids getting the instant feedback, but how are people navigating the data privacy aspects of this?
Yeah, that's where our district kind of shut things down on is because of the DSAs. Without a strong agreement, there's just so many laws that could be knowingly or unknowingly being broken, like FERPA and stuff like that. So we don't allow our students to use any. Like the only access that we do have, like I said, is to Copilot, and it's only through teacher, like through a teacher logged in device. So we're not there yet in our district. But it will be interesting to see, how use cases of students getting into it. But I don't have an answer to that. That's a big
Yeah,
question.
I think we did Magic School AI above age 13 because of COPA, because they
Okay.
could get into some weird, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell it to draw you weird things, and it will, some of them. I think Magic School won't do anything related at all to like sex or violence and stuff like that. But that's one of the things that we've been hitting is like some of these would be great if students could actually use them, but then they shut us down on that one. So
I was gonna say, I don't know if you want to start at the age of 13. It seems to be the wrong age to start giving kids these types of
well,
tools.
I think it's because of COPA. I mean, I think that's honestly
Yeah,
what
no, I
why they
understand.
were able to say this is
Yeah.
where the law draws the line. Like
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys, there's been some recent research that popped up about the effect of using AI as a writing tool on people's ability to write without AI. And it was talking about like even 4 to 6 hours, I think it was, with AI as a writing companion, like set people back on being able to recognize their own spelling errors and grammatical mistakes if they didn't have AI. And I don't know what level of AI, because if you think about it, even Grammarly is artificial intelligence in a way, right? Like even Google Docs that just has simple spelling assistance is sort of using AI because it learns over time. There's other spellings for things. So it was just interesting to read that research also because I had lunch with one of our humanities folks and we were talking about like the role of AI and teaching kids how to use it, but also how do we develop their skills in such a way that they're not completely dependent on it going forward. But then
Yeah, I
again,
saw that article and they compared it to like atrophy in terms of like if there's a reason, even though we have a wheelchair, we don't all use wheelchairs. We use our legs
yeah.
because we can't and we need to, right? For muscle strength and things like that. When of course you could sit all day if you want, but and like these AI models are basically like sitting in a wheelchair all day for your brain. Like you're just not using the muscle, and so it'll atrophy. And that was what that research was starting to show. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one that came out about problem solving ability. And I'm like, okay, but like don't take away my Alexa because I need it, right? Like I think we have to figure out where the balance is. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had a lot of conversations lately about the amount of time kids are just spending on devices in general, especially at the younger grades, because we see a lot of pull 2 kids for small group and 14, 15 kids are just on their devices for several hours a day. And so we've been having conversations about like how to keep that balance and how to find that balance and bring more real paper-based things or hands-on things back into. Luckily, our science is pretty much none of it's online. We don't even use the online platform that came with our adoption, so I'm not too worried.
Yeah.
So you tried the Teaks guide, Melissa. How did you get it out of there? I can't, like, I guess you just have to like
I'll show you
screenshot
in
it
a second.
and type it.
So yes, I'll show you in a second. So for those of you that don't want to stay for this part on there, our feedback, I linked it in the chat for you if you kind of throw that in there. So you don't have to stay for the conversation. As soon as we have this recording all set, we will share it out through our email. Just make sure that we are not that you don't have us blocked. We keep getting a lot of emails bounced back to us because we are just a Gmail that is mass emailing people and it doesn't like it. So make sure that you add us to your contacts. So I will show you. I pretty much
I'm
basically I
going to
pulled
stop
it
the
up right
record.
here.
Melissa, I'm going to
Go for
stop
it.
the recording now.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Go for it.